the Everything But Politics podcast.
All right, guys, what an honor this is. Joining us here is the U.S. Open champion, Greg Bodine. Greg, welcome to the Everything But Politics podcast.
Perfect. Thanks, fellas. I'm, like I said, happy to be on and share some insight from the last couple of weeks. There's been a lot going on, and so let's unpack a little bit.
Let's do it.
And how does it feel when I say that, Greg? U.S. Open champion.
It's great. So that was my, so I've caddied for about 10 years now. And, I've caddied for a handful of people, been a part of a handful of wins. Most memorable was probably Greenbrier last year with Bryson shooting 58 in the final round. And I didn't think that would be topped, at least anytime soon. But to have a major as a caddy is different. And it's, I remember when Bryson was putting out on 18, when he had that 4-footer, I was just thinking, like, the one thing that was kind of remember going through my mind was, like, we're 4 feet away from US Open. And I was just like, please, I knew he was going to hit a good putt. I was just like, hopefully we read it halfway decent and it doesn't bobble off line at the end of the day. On a US, the greens they're not bumpy, but it's still, you're the last ones coming through. You just never know what could happen. But yeah, 4 feet away and it ended up working out. So can't complain.
So, and then shortly after winning, I mean, you feel like you want to like kind of soak it all in. You guys didn't really have the opportunity. Bryson went on his media tour. You went back to Washington for a quick few days, and then off to Nashville you go. And obviously we weren't there, but the reaction we saw on Instagram, it was that unlike any other live event you've seen thus far?
Yeah, Liv has had some really good turnouts and some great, like even Greenbrier, the way that ended, like that was, I don't know how much people have seen that, but he made a 40-footer in the rain to shoot 58 to win by like 7. So that was absurd in and of itself. But yeah, I had never been a part of a player winning a major. Also never, in any of the wins, I don't think any of the wins I've been a part of as a caddy that we went and played the next week. So like you said, I came home for a couple days. I don't know how Bryson did it. And they actually had a solid week the next week in Nashville because just to give you guys like a timeline of what went down. He was signing, into the dark at Pinehurst, and he got back into the player dining at about 11 p.m. We all hung out there for an hour or two, just, celebrating a little bit. And then he went back to his house. And then I don't know if you guys saw the clips of all the people in the neighborhood that he was staying at.
Yep,
they all
saw that. Yep.
So he had a little block party there. And then he packed up. They flew out to New York at 2:30 in the morning. They landed, went straight to the Today Show. Then he went on CNBC. Then he went on, is it Pat McAfee or
Pat McAfee? Yeah.
McAfee. He went on the McAfee show. Then I guess he was able to get back and take like a 1-hour power nap. And then he went on Jimmy Fallon. And then he had one other appearance. And then he went over to Trump Westchester up the road a little bit, and they had like a party. I don't know if you saw the glow balls, him hitting the glow balls into the night. And they went back and I responded to a bunch of texts and all that. And I think he said he got like 5 hours of sleep that night. And then he showed up to Nashville. I feel kind of bad because I went to Seattle and like I had a lot going on here, but nothing close to what he was dealing with. He went back to Nashville. He gave me the 2 days off, and he was on the range on Tuesday afternoon when I wasn't even there. And I'm like, dude, what are you like? If I would have known you would have been grinding on Tuesday afternoon on the range, I probably would have got back a little earlier. But that's just kind of Bryson is. He's kind of like, what's next? And he probably was trying to figure out something in a swing or why we were missing it right on Sunday or something like that. He's just so the perfectionist he is.
And before we get into the US Open here, how many texts did you receive Sunday night?
750. Yeah.
Insane.
And then it was a bunch that was text, and there's a bunch, I got a handful of emails and Instagram messages. But the nice thing is, it's a great, there's a lot that goes into responding to those people. I tried to respond. I pretty much responded to everyone, and I didn't want to just give them the heart emoji or the thumbs up, but I took my time. The nice thing is I had a 6-hour flight from Raleigh to Seattle on Monday morning. So I was able to spend a lot of that flight getting back to all the people that have, that love and support me and are happy for for the success that Bryson and I have had. So yeah, it was a lot. My fingers were tired at the end of the flight, but it's all good stuff, you know.
Totally.
Yeah. And Greg, going into the US Open, what were the vibes like? Obviously, Bryson was in contention at the PGA and the Masters. So how are you guys feeling going into the weekend?
Bad. Or in the weekend, I thought you meant going into the week. We felt
Going
bad
into the week, I mean,
because
yep.
yeah, so at Houston, I think we finished like 15th, and
Hmm.
which I mean for him, it's not a very good week out there, and he wasn't really happy with his game. He wasn't really happy with the way he was putting. We actually went to, not a lot of people know this, but we actually went to the range after the round on Sunday. So like tournament's finished. We missed like a 5-footer on the last hole to make bogey to finish, 15th or 18th, something like that. And we go straight to the range. And keep in mind, it's like 95 degrees and extremely humid. And we go to the range for about an hour, maybe an hour and a half, and beat balls just to kind of try to find something to go into Pinehurst. Obviously, his game wasn't lost. Like he just, like you said, played really well at the PGA.
Hmm.
But Bryson is, he's a well documented perfectionist, and he wanted to figure out something going into the next week. And I would be lying if I say a lot of progress was made on the range there, but it probably gave him some peace of mind just having, he wanted to have some sort of swing thought or feel going into next week. But early on in Pinehurst, Dana Dahlquist, his swing coach and Sportsbox AI, Paul and Jihei were out there with us early in the week and found some things in his swing that really propelled him forward. And on Tuesday, it was like he was playing great, and so we knew that we had what we needed going into the weekend.
But you say he was
Wow.
playing great. Does that mean the swing was great? The short game was dialed? When did all the pieces kind of come together there?
On Tuesday, on Tuesday. And I remember, so he actually made a couple great up and downs from number 8 is this pretty tough par 4 with a terrifying green. It's kind of the top looks like an infinity green, and it goes way down and it'll kick you onto almost the 9th tee box. And then the top tier kind of pitches back towards the fairway. So if you go long, you're chipping up this severe slope, and then you get on top and it runs away from you, and it's hard not to go 20 yards off the front edge of the green. So it's this, Tiger talked about some guys playing ping pong earlier in the week, and that was one of those greens where you could literally just go back and forth. But he was over the back of the green on Tuesday with his lob wedge and his 55, and he was just hitting these like unbelievable. He'd go high with the 60, then he'd bump the 55 and have one hop, it'd land on top, and he'd kind of check a little bit. And that's where even early in the week, a lot of people were asking me like, okay, is he going to do the Keimer approach, putt everything? And I'm like, I think he's going to chip everything. Like, unless it's a bad lie, that was kind of the game plan. He was like, unless the ball's sitting down and he like can't get to the back of the ball with a wedge, they'll putt that. But other than that, he was going to chip everything. And you guys saw, like, he just, when in doubt, he just got his 60 out. He used his 55 a few times as well. And that's when I was like, okay, we saw Pinehurst for the second. We went there in January just to scout it out a little bit, but seeing it in the tournament conditions, I'm like, okay, you can hit a bunch of drivers. That was a lot. You see a guy like Keimer, and it's like, obviously Keimer and Bryson are both great players, but the last guy to have won there was Keimer, who hits low little fades and putts everything, like pretty much the exact opposite game. So I was interested to kind of see what the course was playing like. And Bryson, we learned that it didn't stop him from hitting driver a lot. There's a few holes you got to lay up on and all that, but anytime, you got to remember, anytime Bryson can hit driver, he's going to be 45 yards ahead of everyone else on average. He'll be 60 yards ahead of some people, 30 yards ahead of others. And those greens are so small, they play so small and so firm, to where I was like, we're going to be hitting wedges into a lot of these greens, to where if he can drive it well, it's going to be a massive advantage. And it doesn't stop him from hitting driver. Like, there's not a lot of room, but like there's no creeks or pop bunkers in the middle of the fairway.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, on Tuesday, his chipping, he was really comfortable chipping around the greens. Like I said, over the back of 8, I could tell he was feeling himself when it came to his short game. And then he started to hit it better, Monday afternoon and Tuesday morning. And at that point, I was like, okay, like, you obviously don't know what's going to happen, but I feel like we're going to have a chance.
And I like how you mentioned 8, because in my opinion, in Evan's opinion, the 8th hole on Sunday does not get talked about enough. I think that was the hole that kind of, you get that 20-footer, 18-footer. He makes a huge par after being so far out of position. When you look back on that final round, obviously 18 was incredible, but is 8 the up and down that kind of changed the momentum?
I look at it this way. So like, yeah, 8 was huge. Where I feel like 8
Mm,
was the conference semifinals. Like we had to get through 8 to just have a chance at the semis, and then
yeah.
he
Yes.
on 13 was like the semifinals. So like, of course, 18 is the shot that people remember, and it's essentially what won him the tournament. But if he doesn't do what he did on 8 and 13, like we don't, the 18th hole
Yeah,
doesn't
not even
matter.
there.
Like I'm a firm believer that if we make a bogey or a double on 8, or if we don't birdie 13 and like hit that tee shot right in front of Rory walking off 14 as he's walking into the left trees, like I don't think Bryson, I don't think that he might get, let's say he gets up and down on 18 without doing the job on 8 or 13. And it's like, it probably would have been to get a share of tied second or third, just because Rory, I do think, yeah, 8 for sure. And Bones even said that's one of the best up and downs he's ever seen. And he caddied for Phil for a long time. So
Yep.
that was huge. And then, yeah, on 13, just to hit that tee ball on the green, I think he was the second person the entire day to actually hit it on the green. And so with Rory walking off the tee, 13's greens here and 14, you walk back this way, to where Rory walked off after just getting a 2-shot lead. And he was like, okay, like I'm in the left trees. Bryson's like at least going to make a birdie, and he might make an eagle, and we might be tied. So I think that was just huge for not only Bryson's psyche, but for Rory. Like if you go into the last 4 or 5 holes down 2 shots to Rory, like, yeah, he slipped up and missed a couple short putts, but you can't count on. I mean, he's going to cruise into the Hall of Fame. The guy is one of the best golfers to ever play, to where you can't count on him making mistakes, to where if you go to the 14th tee and you're like, okay, I got to make 2 birdies the last 5 holes, and that's if Rory doesn't make a birdie.
Yeah, no doubt.
So that was, yeah, it was kind of like, yeah, 18 is the one that won it for him, but at the same time, if he doesn't do what he did on 8 and 13, like 18 is irrelevant. Like I said, maybe we get in the finish second or third, but it's not even to win.
Yeah, and Merrick and I, even when we were watching the golf, said on that 8th hole, if he makes this, he could win this
Yeah.
tournament. Right? Remember that,
Mm-hmm.
Merrick?
Yeah, I
It
do.
it was fascinating. So going into the back nine, how aware were you guys that Rory missed those short putts?
Very. Like we knew. I mean, he's right. It's a
Mm-hmm.
U.S. Open on Sunday. The round's moving pretty slow. He's in the group in front of us. There's thousands of people around. I would say I didn't. I can't speak for Bryson, because when we heard the crowd kind of gasp or whatever, we didn't say a thing about it. We just knew that he had missed a somewhat shorter putt for par. Even on 18, I thought 18, in my mind, I thought he had maybe like 5 or 7 feet, and
Mm-hmm.
that's simply because we're watching him putt, and he hits it because of how downhill it was. Like he hit it super soft, which he had to, and it just took a long time for the ball to get to the hole because it's a downhill putt.
Yep.
And so, call it what is probably a couple seconds after he hit the putt, you hear the crowd gasp. And so I thought to myself, maybe he was a little more left of the hole. I couldn't see where he was putting towards because the pin's out.
Mhm.
And in my head, I'm like, okay, that was like 5, 7 footer. But still a great break for us. That's what we needed in that situation. And then to go back and see the one on 16, obviously I think Rory would say like that's one he can make him sleep most of the time, and not a lot
Yeah.
of break back there on that green. But 18 is a terrifying putt. 18 it's the only hole we get like a little statistical driven right now, because just to give you guys context, the 18th hole was on a 4%. I mean, obviously we can't use greens books out there, but you can reference greens books. And I remember seeing that 18 is on a 4% slope, and a 4% slope at a US Open is extreme. The ball will basically move at a 5% slope. So, when you see a ball go up a tier and it kind of stops and then trickles back, like that week, that was like a 5% slope at US Opens. Usually it's a 6 or 7% slope to where the ball will move and it doesn't stick. So to give you an idea, if that green is just pitched one more degree back to front, his ball actually like comes back pin high or short of pin high, and that's why he had to play about a cup of break. And I feel like he hit a pretty good putt there, and it still barely grazed the right edge. So that was a terrifying putt for him to have. Obviously, more than likely he does make it, but it's tough on his part.
It was tough to watch, but fortunately for you guys, Bryson ended up carrying the trophy here. But so Greg, I look back, I've been following golf very closely since I was about 15, 16. And I think this was the best major since the 2019 Masters where Tiger won. You were part of both final groups. You're the only person in the world that can say that. How do they compare?
Yeah, it's funny. We had a talk here at Evergreen last night. We had a bunch of members and people. This is the indoor club that I started with a buddy of mine here a couple years ago, and we had about, I don't know, it's close to 100 people show up. And I said, like, for some reason, I just like find myself in the middle of like the most historic moments of golf, because a lot of people said that Jack's round in '86, which I would say that's a worthy debate, like Tiger's 2019 Masters versus Jack's in '86. But yeah, it was. I didn't think that I would. Once I caddied in the final group in 2019 with Francesco, Tony, and Tiger, I was like, this is gonna be tough to beat. Like, everyone's saying it's the most historic round, and then obviously 2 weeks ago happened, and just. A lot of people said that Bryson's bunker shot will be like the most historic shot in major championship history, which they might be right. Like, I can't think of another one off the top. Obviously, you got Tiger's chip in on 16 at Augusta, but like, to me, and like, I'm a Tiger guy. Like, if I'm very happy with conceding that to him, but also like just for it to be on the last hole, like, at least with Tiger, you have these shots. He has so many of these shots on the back nine that obviously won him, a lot of majors. But it's like so black and white. You're like, if you get up and down, you win the U.S. Open. If you don't get up and down, or if you make a bogey, you're tied. You also are in this spot where you could make a 7 and lose, in terrible fashion. And so to compare the two, I would say Tiger shot on 16 in 2019 and on 18 at the U.S. Open were the two loudest holes I've ever been a part of. You guys probably remember when Tiger hit it just past the flag on 18 or on 16, it trickled down to a foot and a half below the hole. From our angle in the tee box, it looked like it was going to go in the entire time. It ended up going, I think it was behind the hole, like 6 inches, and then kind of came and rested at a foot or two below it. That was absurd. Just like the crescendo of every single person on that hole, which is probably, it was thousands of people on just that little par 3, and everyone was trying to will that ball into the hole and have a hole in one. And then but on 18, the roar on 18 when Bryson made that 4-footer was tied first when it came to the crowd, how loud the crowd was. But just obviously, I loved 2019 was awesome. Tony ended up having a decent tournament, and just to be a part of that, I'm really thankful for. But at the same time, when it's your player, it's just different. So it was my first major. 2019, I have a lot of memories. I kept a lot of the stuff, from the the scorecard, and I got a bunch of pictures. Tiger signed some pictures for me of us shaking hands on the 18th green, and that's incredible. But nothing will top kind of what happened last. And just to get Payne Stewart's flag, like on 18, they had the silhouette of Payne. So the caddy, for people that don't know, every caddy, when you win, like, your trophy is kind of like the flag off of the 18th flag stick, and it had the silhouette of Payne, and then all the history with Bryson and SMU and the cap. And then they also ended up giving me a trophy, which I didn't know until about 30 seconds before it happened. So I was able to come home with a trophy and the flag. So no offense to 2019. I think that's the most historic round of golf ever played in the game. But Bryson potentially has the most historic, the best shot in major championship history. And I was on the winning side of that. So I'll go that with number one.
Well, everyone's said it. I'm sure you've heard it. That is the hardest shot in the game of golf. That 50-yard bunker shot, especially under the pressure on the 72nd hole. Like, that is just absolutely phenomenal the way he executed that shot. But, Greg, I think it's interesting because everything I've heard you in the interviews the last 10 days, it's always been about the round, and we're guilty of that now the last 20 minutes. But going into that Saturday night and waking up Sunday morning, did you sleep? What was the energy like Sunday morning? How did that kind of set the tone for the rest of the day?
Yeah, I can't speak for Bryson. this is gonna sound. This isn't like the juicy answer you probably were looking for. Like I slept pretty well. Bryson applauds me on kind of being a flatliner of the two of us. We're very similar in some ways, but very opposite in others. I've tried to just, with caddying, here's the thing that people need to realize when it comes to like, I mean, caddying, yes, but playing more than others is like these guys, there's a buildup. There's a lot of levels to them being in these situations. And not to say that I know Bryson was really nervous. When we started the first couple holes, like I was very nervous. But at the same time, when you get a couple holes in, it kind of feels like business as usual. And then the last couple holes, I remember just my heart rate was like beating extremely hard. I'm sure Bryson's was too. And he even said like he was feeling a little shaky the last few holes, but that's just part of it. But for me, and for players more than anything, it's like these guys, we always think about, okay, what if you guys golf to where it's like, okay, if I was thrown in that position with a bunker shot and I don't know whether there's probably 10,000 people on that hole and you've got millions of people watching. It's like, of course, we're going to think like, were you hitting this into, the railroad tracks over the clubhouse, or we're leaving this 2 feet in front of us out of fear of hitting it into the clubhouse. And those guys, like, not to make it's obviously one of the hardest shots he's ever had to hit, and there's pressure, but he grew up playing high level competitive golf, and at some point when he was a teenager, a couple camera crews came out. Some people started asking him questions about his golf game. At some point, maybe at high school, he had 50 people watching him in his match. Mm-hmm. Then he goes to SMU and you got the Golf Channel showing up for the first time, and you deal with, on-course interviews. And then for the first time, maybe you got 1,000 people following your group. And it's just over time, these players, not to discount the pressure they deal with, because like I said, I'm sure Bryson wanted to puke on himself and was shaking, but that he's able to execute in those moments because there's a lot of he puts in more work than anyone. That's like the most underrated thing when it comes to performing under pressure is like if you're prepared, and Bryson's the most prepared. Mm-hmm. It's like going into a test. If you go into a test that you don't study for, like you're going to be a little anxious that you're going to flunk because you know none of the answers. But if you go into a test and you have the study guide and you have it known like the back of your hand, like you're feeling pretty good about yourself. You're almost excited to do it. So all that to say is like Bryson, he's been in the Ryder Cups, he's been at President's Cups, he's won like almost 10 times on the PGA Tour. He's shot 58. Like this guy has been there and done that, and he's prepared, and he's got that track record of being that closer to where those are the kind of things that I feel like give those players confidence in those situations where it's like feels impossible to people like us. Like I'm a pretty good golfer myself, but if you give myself that shot on 18, like there's no chance it's turning out good. So
to us
for
mortals.
those guys, yeah, exactly. So yeah, it's just one of those shots for people that don't, that maybe don't understand those shots and why everyone talks about that, length of bunker shot. It's like basically your margin for error. A greenside bunker shot, you can hit 2 to even like 4 inches behind the golf ball and like you're okay, and it's going to splash out. It might not go close, but you're going to be on the green or you'll be close to the hole. But on a 50-yard, 60-yard bunker shot, you can't, if you hit 2 inches behind it, it's going to go 5-6 yards. If you hit a half inch behind it, it's going to go 70 yards over the green. And obviously if you catch it clean, it's going 80, 90 yards. So essentially, instead of having that 2.5 inch buffer zone of hitting behind the golf ball, you have like an inch, maybe an inch and a half. And so what's funny is like Bryson is the most aware of that out of anyone. What impresses me about Bryson is like he knows how fine of a line there is on shots like that, or even on putting. He knows that if I start this a degree offline, like from 10 feet, I'm going to miss right or whatever it may be. But so he knows how hard the game is from that standpoint, but he continues to play some of the best golf, which I feel like if I knew as much as he did, it almost hurt my performance, but that's not the case with him.
Amazing.
Well, and how important was it to have the crowd on your side in those pressure situations?
Yeah, it was huge. Like people, they see these people as machines, and just like they see them pop out on the first tee and on TV, and then once they leave, they don't think about like these people are normal human beings. They have emotions, they have feelings. Bryson, like everyone else, he does care about what people think about him, especially the people that are close to him. And so to go from a guy that Bryson's always had a really loyal following. There's been a lot of people that love Bryson, and that's been a big part of getting through these last few years. But he's also had a lot of people that do not like him for reasons that, for he would admit he gave people some reasons to do that. He said some things at the wrong time and said the wrong things, and he's owned up to that. And but I also just think Bryson's a good person that had a tendency to get in some weird situations with stuff that wasn't his fault and also some stuff that was his fault. But to have the entire crowd chanting USA, and I think it's been really humbling to him because he's seen the downside. He's been at home with a broken hand and kind of been the forgotten one and wondered if he was ever going to play golf again. And has been the villain at times, undeservedly so. If you know who Bryson is, I see Bryson in front of everyone. I see him when there's no one else. And the thing that you can tell about with Bryson is like he is kind to people that can do nothing for him. To me, that's like a big sign of like who a person is. Like whether it's people in the clubhouse or just people that it's easy to be nice to people that can hook you up with something or the press or people that can speak about you in public or people that have resources that you want. And obviously treat everyone the same, but it's the people that doesn't necessarily mean that they don't have pull or don't have a lot of things going for them, but just people that, hey, like you're in the future, like you can't really do anything for me, but I'm still going to treat you like I should treat everyone else. And so that's what I noticed with Bryson early on is without the cameras and behind the scenes is like, whether it's someone that he is really close to and has a lot of things that he can help Bryson with, that's easy. Anyone can be nice to those people. But it's how you treat people that, serve, from a selfish standpoint, there's, Bryson could just not take the time of day and he's like got a lot of other things to focus on, but he treats everyone as if the same way. And the same way for him is like really well. Like he treats everyone I see really well. And so yeah, for him just to have everyone out there rooting him on, like it was huge. It was gigantic. That's why I wanted everyone to touch the trophy. And like I said, he is a human and he wants he's okay with some people not liking him. Like you can't control all of that, but he wants his primary purpose. Even said when I first started caddying for him, he's like, obviously I want to be the best golfer I can be. Like I want to win. He's shown that he has a huge will for that, but he's also just like, he's the one who knows all the stats. He's like, there's 110 million people playing the game right now. I want to get it to 150. And like, that's his main, I could be wrong. And if I am wrong, I apologize, Bryson, but I think like one of his main objectives in his career is just to transform the game and grow it to a new height that hasn't been seen. Because golf it's a unique sport. It's not the most popular. He felt like Live was something that could take it to the next level. And I think we're starting to prove that's, those guys on that side of the coin they knew something that they were right in some regard. But yeah, he's the man, and he loves that attention, and like I said, he's human like everyone else, and it was a big part of it. I think him, finishing first.
Yeah, what he does in his reaction to all the fans, it's so inspiring. Just like being at that level and embracing every second, every person is very different. I don't know anyone that's ever done that, ever touched the trophy, I mean, that's amazing.
Yeah, I think golf does not need more people that are very, like, I understand people that need to play their best golf have to be very like stoic and like, okay, I need to take one shot at a time and like not get too high or too low. Like I get that, like it's somewhat easier way to play golf for most people, but like we do not need more of those people on the PGA Tour. We need, not that there's room for like 30 Brysons, like it'd be kind of like chaotic out there if everyone was acting like Bryson. But you see in other sports, you see a guy make a big tackle in football and get up and do their signature dance or whatever it may be, or you see Steph Curry make a three and he does this little dance and holds up three fingers. Like that's what I think he's trying to get the game of golf to be more like, to where, yeah, it gets old when you see a guy make a 25-footer for birdie and he like his face does not budge, and he tips his cap and walks to the side and looks at his golf ball and stands and waits for the next guy to put out. Like that's boring. And so for him, he's the nice thing, the easy thing for him is like this isn't a show. Like he's not putting on a show. He's actually just kind of being his own self. And I think that's
Mhm.
what's been really freeing the last year or two, is that it's exhausting being someone that you're not. And like if Bryson was going to be out there and like tip his cap and be very like, he would not be able to survive out there. He's got a lot of passion and energy, and he's either going to manifest it in a negative way or he's going to manifest it in a positive way. And so that's like one of my few jobs out there, is to like try to like bump him towards the positive way. Not that there's a
Yep.
time to there's times to vent and be frustrated. Like the game will drive you nuts. So it's like
Yes.
I don't try to stop that, at certain times, but yeah, Bryson's, even like Rory said in his statement, like Bryson's exactly what the game of golf needs. And that would be nice and be fun to see a couple more kids come up that act a little more like Bryson, and hopefully that's like they're genuine themselves, because that's exactly what it is with him.
Love
Yep.
that.
And Greg, you got a busy couple weeks coming up, live in Spain, and then you got the Open Championship at Royal Troon. What's the preparation looking like the next couple weeks?
Yeah, I leave for Spain in a week from Monday. Spain's another course where like a lot of people didn't think Bryson would have a chance. They just think he's this bomb and gouge guy, but it's because Valderrama is like you're just hitting irons off every tee, and you got to control your trajectory, and there's a lot of wind and small greens. But we actually lost on, he won a few times or a couple of times last year. And when Taylor Gooch made a 20-footer on us on 18 to win by one there last year. So I'm looking forward to get back there. Royal Troon is obviously, it's the last major. I'm looking forward to Troon because I actually caddied there in 2016 with Tony Finau. And I remember Tony playing pretty well there for his first, I think it was his first, no, second Open Championship. But Troon's interesting because the first 9 holes go straight out. The clubhouse, that's what a lot of those Open Championship courses, they call it a loop, like even loopers. Like it's called that because a lot of those courses you go out and back in, and it's a loop. So number 9 goes straight out across the water away from the clubhouse, and every hole played, at least in 2016, every hole played like 20 miles an hour down off the right. And every hole on the back 9 on the way back in played like 20 miles an hour in off the left, which the front 9 is awesome. And if you don't make the turn at 2-3 under, it's like good luck, because it's hard to make birdies on the back 9. That was when Henrik Stenson won, and Phil,
That
they
was a
both
great
kind of ran
Open.
away with
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was an incredible one. And so I'm interested to see. I went on Google Earth a couple days ago just out of curiosity. I was like, I forget where a lot of those pot bunkers are, and it's like I feel like Bryson's going to play really aggressive on the front 9. Like number 1's 390, and it's 20 miles an hour down off the right, but the beach and the ocean is right off the right side, to where like he'll probably have to start something in the sand. But it's one like he can easily get to the green if there's helping wind, and so we'll see. We'll see what it's like. I mean, Bryson's proved now that he can play well anywhere, but it is nice going back to two courses that we have seen before.
Can the course be overpowered?
On the front 9, I feel like it can be. I don't remember. I remember all the holes vaguely. I do think, because it's like it's one thing when I remember caddying for Tony there, and Tony's obviously a freak and hits the ball incredibly far. But
Yeah.
I do remember Tony hitting a lot of drivers at that course, and even it'll be interesting. Number 16 is a par 5 with a creek at about 300, but it usually plays into the wind. Like I said, the back 9 plays in, and this will be interesting TV, because if it is a little into the wind, that creek's probably playing 310, 320, but Bryson can carry a 320, 320, 330. It'll be fun to see if he tries to carry the creek, because usually like even Tony, we'd have to hit like an iron short, then you try to hit a 3-wood to the front edge, just because it forces you to have 290 to the hole. But to answer your question, is he'll like, yeah, Bryson's good at everything, but his main weapon is that driver. And so I always remind him how he's the best driver of the
Yeah.
golf ball in the world. And so I always joke with him, like, if we're in between, if it's like a tough decision, like, gosh, should we hit driver, or is it a 3-wood, or should we lay up short? If it's like 50-50 call, I'm always just like, let's go with driver. I will die on that hill of the caddy with Bryson, like choosing a driver over any other club. As long as it's reasonable. It has to be something where we try not to make too many stupid decisions out there. But yeah, I believe that there is a way, but there's also with links golf, like you try to overpower things, and sometimes it can bite you in the butt and you find yourself in a pot bunker trying to chip out sideways for your third shot. So we'll have to be smart.
Well, you guys are definitely doing well in the avoiding stupid decisions department. But Greg, before we let you
Yeah.
go, know you're extremely busy. Why don't you tell us about what you're building up there in the Pacific Northwest with Evergreen Golf Club?
Yeah, so when I stopped caddying with Tony, I kind of, I have a couple kids, my wife back home. So I was looking to, I was looking kind of for the next chapter of what, life was like. I had been caddying 35 weeks a year, the PGA Tour. I mean, it was a great tour. I had a lot of good times on there, but the schedule was just massive. And so I came back home and I got linked up. I don't know if you guys are football fans, but if you are, my partner's Jermaine Kearse. He played for the Seahawks for 7-8 years. He's
got a ring or two, right?
He's got one. Well, he's usually exactly. Well, so he had one in the Broncos. He had a great catch in the Broncos, a touchdown catch in the Broncos game that they blew him out. And then he's the one who caught the pass down at the goal line where it set up what we thought was going to be a run to Marshawn Lynch. And obviously they passed it. But if you go back to that Super Bowl against the Pats, Jermaine's the one who caught the go route down the right side, and it went off his elbow. Yeah, it went off his elbow, his knee, and then all of a sudden it kind of flew up and he caught it, and everyone stopped for a split second. He got up and he ran another yard and almost got into the end zone. And I think they ran a dive to Marshawn the next play and got down to the 1 yard line, and then they threw the pass on the next play. But anyways, it's a long story, but Jermaine and I partnered up and we started an indoor golf facility, and it's called Evergreen Golf Club. You guys can find us on Instagram at Evergreen Golf Club. And it's kind of just like a lifestyle indoor golf club where we have our first one, we're opening a second one, but our first one's 13,000 square feet. We have 8, we're starting our 9th TrackMan Bay, and we have an indoor chipping green. We have a fitness center. We have a couple lounges. We have a conference room. We have a snack station. So it's like one of these spots where obviously a lot of people want to get in, get out, work on their game. We have a few instructors, but we don't sell clubs. We don't do fittings. It's just a spot where people can come and hang out and spend. We tried to build it to where people can come spend a couple hours and just all hang out and develop some sort of a culture and a community here. And we're starting second one down in Tacoma. Andrew Putnam, a local PGA Tour pro, is partnering up with that one, and that will be the largest. That we're actually about to announce that in the next week or so. And that'll be the largest indoor golf club in the country. It's 25,000 square feet, 30-foot high ceilings, and it's clear span design, which means there's no beams. And so we're gonna have a like an 8,000 square foot chipping green there where you can just grab a drink and have a chip off with a few of your buddies. And we're gonna have 13 TrackMan bays there. And so it's kind of my side gig when I get back here. It's a lot of fun to just stay involved in the industry. And it's kind of, Bryson's seen pictures and he said he's going to come up at some point, but it's right up his alley too. So it's funny how it's, like I said, there were some ways we're similar. We got the putt view greens and all, like we have a putt view green here, and it's the exact same putt view green Bryson has at his house. So it's been fun to stick around in the industry when I get back home.
You're growing the game, man. It's so cool to see. Greg, I mean, you're doing more than most, but Greg, really do appreciate you joining us here. This has been so much fun. Where can people find you, your socials, and Evergreen Golf Club?
Yeah, so you can obviously, you guys might have heard by now my nickname that Bryson's got me at is Gbo. So my Instagram is Gbo7, so GBO7, and then Evergreen Golf Club is just our Evergreen location is just at Evergreen Golf Club. You can find us there, and so. Yeah, I try to put some good insight out there. Bryson's kind of inspired me to be a mini content creator. So when I get out on the road, I try to put out a good reel once a week and kind of shine light on what Liv's doing and what Bryson's up to that week. And so it's been a good response. People seem to like my, like I said, I'm not an editor at all, but I try to put something together interesting. And but yeah, you can find me there and tag along. I try to do my best to show everyone a little sneak peek.
Yeah,
Greg Bodine, U.S. Open champion. We're so happy for you, man. Thanks for coming on our show.
Thanks, fellas.